Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Business Growth Pod. I am your host, Allan Draper. Excited for our episode today. Excited for our guest. Before we jump in, go ahead and make sure that you're following me on the platform that you listen to this podcast on. Go ahead and hit follow or subscribe, whatever that button is, and drop me a review if you could. That helps this podcast get in the hands of the people that are looking for it and are looking for some help starting their businesses and taking their businesses to the next level. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Dr. Bowen. Dr. Bowen is the founder and CEO of Underdog Millionaire. And this is the cool thing. He's committed to helping entrepreneurs and coaching professionals build predictable, repeatable, profitable seven-figure businesses. So I'm excited for the conversation today. Welcome to the show, Dr. Bowen.
Yeah, thank you, Allan. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate you, the audience you're serving. It's such a remarkable space to be in, especially today with what's been going on in the world. So I'm honored and excited. Thanks.
Yeah, no, it's, I think that, that our listeners have quite a bit that they can learn from you.
Right.
I want to hear just a brief intro. I know it's tough with, the amount of experience and education that you have to keep it brief, but tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you into the world of entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit. So I'm an immigrant to the United States. So I came from Guyana, South America. Most people aren't even aware of it. Depending on your age of the age of your listener, if they're probably older than 40, and they're probably familiar with Jim Jones, Jonestown, don't drink the Kool-Aid. That's where the phrase came from, where I was born. But I came up to the United States, had a bad run, attitude adjustment, culture adjustment, in and out of just about every high school, got kicked out of high school in New York, right? And expelled from one, went down south to Atlanta, and finished high school there. And what attracted me, because I was always very energetic, I was always very outgoing, and I love a lot of action. My attraction kind of grew to the military, but more so the Marine Corps. So I joined the Marine Corps when I was 17 years old.
Jeez.
I know. The crazy part was my mom, and not too many people know this, but can't believe I'm actually saying it publicly now. It's probably my mom recently passed, so she's not going to be mad now. My mom signed me into the Marine Corps and didn't know she did. She thought she was signing a permission slip to send me to a senior camp, and it was the recruiting paper.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so there's that saying, if you want something bad enough, like, you'll do anything to get it, in a sense. So whether you want it, you'll find a reason or an excuse to justify whatever it is you want to do, right? So
exactly. My
reason was, hey, I needed a signature and I don't want to wait 6 months. Well, here's how I'm going to do it.
Wow.
So, fast forward, joined the Marine Corps. I spent 20 years there. I got injured at about 15 years in, and then about 2.5 years of getting better. This was 2006. I eventually retired in 2009 and left the military. I was married while I was active duty to my first wife, which lasted for about 14 years. And with my injury, when I got blown up, I was paralyzed from the waist down, couldn't walk or talk for about 9 months. So with that, my diagnosis was PTSD, the traumatic brain injury. And then we had a divorce at the same time. So I was going through a lot. Jeez. The divorce, the trauma, there's everything you name it, which rendered me living homeless in my car for about 5 years. And I retired in California until a friend of mine brought me a book, personal development book called The Slight Edge, which is all about helping you take simple disciplines and turn it into massive success, right? In whatever area of life that you were focused on. Mine then needed to be something to generate money, because I didn't have any. So one of the fortunate things was the author of that book was building in a direct sales company, for short, network marketing. So I got into, here's the thing, Marine, doing anti-aging skincare. Wasn't really a good fit, right? But I was in California, and in California, women back then and still now, and men, the metrosexual dudes were very concerned about their skin and looking young. So
sure.
I learned three key things to being a business owner. Number one, the number one skill a business owner needs, and that's sales. Sales is the number one and the highest paid skill in the world. If you don't know how to sell, well, you're not going to live a very good life. And the truth is, for people who say they don't like sales, they just sold you on that, right? It's just right. For me, I understood that sales was a transference of belief. Our kids do it to us all day long. They get very annoying when you go to the store. Can I have candy? Can I have it now? And over and over and over. In business, we call that follow-up. And I learned the second piece. Fortune is in the follow-up. So the more people follow up, you might get annoying is one of two things you might say. Well, no, or just give in. So most of us will give in to kids. And the third most important thing I learned was marketing. So if you don't market, so market is really the education of your product or service to everyone else. So I spent about 5 years in network marketing, made a couple $100,000, and I wanted to focus more on what I wanted to do. So I invested about 80% of that into starting up my own company. So I launched my first company called Seven Consulting, and I was consulting to like small businesses and helping them grow and develop. And then with a focus in leadership. So I spent 20 years in the military. I led men into combat, brought them back. I've only lost one Marine in my 20 years of serving. So with that, eventually I started teaching as an adjunct professor in San Diego. And I taught a group of young men who was actually working at Walmart stores at the time. Their store, long story short, went on to be the number one store in San Diego.
Wow.
That young man eventually told his dad, who was a district manager. 6 months later, I taught them, and it kind of like the whole region. This was in 2009. The whole region then in California went really great till it walked into about a year later into a corporate deal. So then Walmart as a whole was a client. And from then to now, I've been teaching and helping entrepreneurs kind of next level grow and stay in that 1%. So a lot of my clients were Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies. When COVID hit though, by that time, to be honest with you, I was kind of getting not bored, but I was getting worn out on just building large companies. And there was the need for the average entrepreneur. And from then to now, my wife and I my wife now, we've been married now since 12. We had built over 112 companies, sold about 107 of them. We still have 8 companies now. I just launched a new company a year and a half ago, which is the Underdog, right? So the whole purpose of the Underdog was I wanted to put myself back in that underdog position and start. So the challenge I gave myself, Allan, was I gave myself $1,000 to build a multi-million-dollar business, starting from scratch. The restrictions I placed on myself was I could not build with those who I've done business with in the past, couldn't use any of my own funding or investing, except for the $1,000, and then find a way to reinvest that doing it. So it started out as a real nice project just to inspire a group of entrepreneurs that I knew and show them what can happen on a daily basis, what I'm doing, structuring deals. And I was recording the whole thing, doing Facebook Lives, all this other stuff, started a group into it. And within the first 90 days, we did over about $138,000 in business. The only thing that did that was the knowledge I had and the confidence from doing business for so long to just walk into it and make it happen. And then it became a bigger project by just saying, you know what, this is going to be my legacy project. I eventually want to launch a television show around it, 20 episodes a year, which is going to highlight my students. So it kind of lends more to their success. And that's the thing that keeps me on a daily basis doing what I do, because my passion really now is helping those small businesses grow, because I've done it in large businesses. And the honest truth was those businesses were already established, but the fun, the excitement for me is more in helping the new guy come out from the uncertainty into certainty and teach them how to build predictable businesses where they know that revenue is coming in, where they know everything is good. And that's, in short, that's what keeps me really now.
I love it. Yeah. So I focus on startups because that's where my passion is. That's right. I love that early process. I love working through unknowns. One thing that I don't like about those early days is this process of trying to convince or persuade or sell
Right.
people on this idea that we're established and we know what we're doing, and we have this experience that we don't have a way of showing. How do you recommend to startup businesses to put themselves, let's say they've been in business for 6 months, how do they put themselves in a position where people will take them seriously when they're just getting started?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the best way is a combination of two things, right? Transparency and congruency, is to be able to share, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what's the driving force behind. So when you're being transparent, people, especially today, people are more apt to follow someone who, most of them will just go through the observation process of watching you to see what you're doing, to make sure you're still around. But the more they watch or the more they listen, you already have buy-in, because that's through your regular marketing or your organic marketing, so to speak. In being congruent is letting folks know, listen, this is where we are. This is what I'm good at. This is why we're doing it. And we're turning this for a profit. When someone can really relate with you, people like relatable brands today. If they feel they're having a conversation with you, whether that's in coaching, consulting, or just products, then it's easier. Just like, for example, my son just launched his clothing line. And his clothing line, what we're doing is we're using his clothing line for fulfillment for a clothing line of my own that I launch. So instead of doing it, I'm giving him the business to have them fulfill. So they're doing all the branding and stuff for our Underdog line. I mean, that's my son. I'm going to give him the business. But on the organic side, him and his wife on like their Instagram, they're sharing that, hey, look, they just started. They're showing the process, where they're going, what they've done, how they're partnering, right? They just shared on their Instagram that they've partnered with our company. Obviously, they didn't share that I'm their dad, right? But they're,
right.
He shared, basically partnered with this company, and he's my son. He comes to my events. I'm going to connect him with other folks so that his brand can grow. But it's those things that people want to see what your brand is doing. They want to feel like they're experiencing your growth. But once they see you start moving, they have buy-in. They have what I call stick-it-to-itiveness. They start to stick more to your brand. So the transparency is very, very important. And being able to be congruent with your message, where it's your message and you're not trying to build this hype, folks can buy into that because they feel connected to your brand.
Yeah. No, I like that idea. I think getting those first early clients or customers is especially important. And then using the concept of social proof, right? Saying like your son was doing with your brand, right? Like, hey, we're doing the fulfillment for this company. And then I think that sets at ease, makes it easier for you to get your foot in the door as you're scaling, right? Like, hey, we're working for these other reputable brands, and everything's working great. And I think that's a big part of it. Also, at what point does a business owner, does an entrepreneur start thinking about their legacy and what they're going to leave behind with their business?
Yeah, that's a real powerful question. Because one of the key things we teach is legacy, and probably 80% of growing a business is all mindset, right? You can never outgrow your level of thinking. So you can only earn at a certain level. You have to grow that level of thinking to another level. But I put us and business into 4 categories when you're thinking about it. So I'm sure you've probably read Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, to understand his 4 quadrants. Mine, that way, is kind of similar. The last quadrant, which is the I quadrant, is legacy. So everything is kind of starting from the premise to get to legacy. So the beginning quadrant is what I call drifting. This is where each of us, before we even get to the point of this is what I want to learn, drifting is better explained in like Hill's book, Outwitting the Devil, right? Talks about the people were drifting, we're kind of emotionally through everything else. We make those decisions based on emotions. But when we decide and we come up with a plan, like, listen, I'm going to start this business, they start the business. Takes them down to the next category. And that next category is where it actually becomes something significant. And they get that into then purpose and meaning, because that first level from drifting takes you down to the second, which is goals. So you start a business, your business has a purpose. Like, what do you want? Is it just for money? What are you going to do with that money? Maybe build a big house, a nice life, vacation. Goals. Don't matter how big your goals are. You can earn $1 billion, have 100 Bugattis, but you're still in the second phase. It's all about the goals that you want. At some point, when you get past that goals phase and you've received everything you have, you get into purpose and meaning, which is, why was I put here? What am I really going to do? And I mean, I got to that space about 6-7 years ago, and I was looking for my purpose and meaning, right? And when I launched my book, Today's the Day, which became a whole movement, I took that whole same concept, the purpose and meaning. I worked in there. It worked well. We made a few $1 million doing that. But that purpose and meaning started driving me into my legacy. And that's what really pushed me into launching the Underdog brand, because that's my legacy project. My legacy project now, because recently I just became a grandfather. Right? So,
congratulations.
Right. Thank you. Right. That's really started pushing me. Like, I'm working in purpose and meaning, but it was present when I look and like, wait a minute, my daughter's having my first grandson. Like, what is my legacy? What do I want to leave them with? So it was helping her and my son and others start a business. But legacy is really, how is the world going to look at you 5 generations from now? But how's your family going to look at you 5 generations from now? So for a business, they have to go through from that wandering phase, which is there then into goals through purpose and meaning, to really hone in on their legacy. What's your legacy you're going to leave? That's
interesting. So recently I've come across this concept that it's so similar to what you're saying. And you're going to have to tell me if we're kind of thinking along the same line. So I got a degree in psychology, and there's a very basic proposition in psychology that was founded by Abraham Maslow.
Right.
And that's the hierarchy of needs, right? So basically the idea is that a creature, right, is not going to worry about what, a human being's not going to worry about what clothes they are wearing or what they look like if they don't have money for food, right?
Right.
So it talks about the things in order that we need in order to survive and thrive. And I was reading this book, and I kind of took some principles and kind of this patchwork of an idea.
Right.
and I'm like, I took that concept of, this, the hierarchy of needs, and I'm like, our financial path follows something similar, right? And I created, or I stole, or I borrowed, or I mismatched into this idea that step 1 is survival. You have to make enough money to put food on the table. You have to be able to survive. Number 2 is status, right? People, they want to have nice clothes. They want to have a nice car. They want to have a comfortable house, whatever it is. They want to be able to pay their bills. Number 3 is freedom, that they want to be able to make enough money to where they can decide what to do with their time. And number 4 is legacy.
Right.
And I feel like, and not everyone goes through each of those steps with the same amount of time, or they don't spend, the same amount of time focusing. Sometimes steps are skipped. Some people skip the status step. I feel like they'll go directly from survival to freedom because they don't really care about status. But it sounds like we're saying kind of these similar things, with where at some point when you build a certain amount of wealth, you get to the point you're like, well, what's next? Right. Yeah. Like you said, hey, I've got 100 Bugattis. Like, yeah, so what? Like, what's next? Right.
Exactly.
And at the end of all of that is legacy. What is going to be left? What am I going to leave behind when I'm no longer on this planet? Right.
Yep.
And I don't know if I stole this quote or I created it, but I say that the goal is not to live forever. The goal is to create something that does.
Yeah. Right. Creating something that lasts forever. It's amazing. There's so many names that will echo into eternity, quoting from was the movie Gladiator, right? But there's so many things and so many names that are going to echo. Like Oprah Winfrey's name will only go for so far, but someone like Gates, who pretty much dominated the software space, right? That's going to last a little longer, right? Jobs from Apple, that's going to last a little longer. I mean, Apple products isn't going to stop anytime soon. They're only going to get better and more, but all stem from there. So I say that legacy, 5 generations, and the way people kind of skip them is kind of going through another different categorical piece of the different stages of learning, right? Because we have first learned knowledge, which is when you take information in. You have learned knowledge, model knowledge, and then from that model knowledge, you have comes the teaching knowledge. Most people want to go from learn to teaching and skip the actual activity knowledge. Well, the activity knowledge is the one step. It's like you got to learn it, then you got to do it, right? But before doing it, you got to model it from somebody. Then you have to do it enough to where you have mastery, which is a good book, by the way, by Robert Greene. When you master it, then you could turn around and move to the next level and said, teach it. So when you go through learn knowledge, activity knowledge, model knowledge, and teaching knowledge, most people just want to go learn, teach. And especially in the coaching space and industry, somebody learns something today and they want to teach you. Well, they have nothing more other than the information. Where's your life experience? Where's the examples? Like today, we call those case studies in business. Where's the case study? Where's the people who did what you tell them to do and had some results, right? People want to see that today. Like, who can you say when someone's asking me like, well, I don't know if I should pay you what you're asking. I was like, well, you don't have to. You can just go look at my clients and see what they've done, and you decide if you want to work with me or not. I'm not going to beat after you, right? So it's going through those phases. Now I'm in that space, and just like with Maslow's hierarchy, in the beginning I started business, like in network marketing, something I thought I would never do, but it's the fastest way I could have earned money to do the most important thing: eat. Like I needed to eat. So if I didn't sell a product that day or that week, I wasn't eating. And then it became something else. For me, I've never been the status person either. I'm just always low key. Growing up in the Marine Corps, we always did more with less. So for me, it was always that freedom. The freedom excited me. And because of my 20 years in the military, gave me a great habit, that habit of traveling. So my wife, I remember the first time we got to what we called, grown-up money, we kind of took off and traveled for 18 months straight. Like just all we did. We did cruises all around the world, traveled here or there. And then 18 months later, it's like, all right, the one plan we didn't make was stay in shape, right? So, like our actual goal was to travel the world and have room service. Forgot to put workout in there. 38 pounds later, showed up and one of my daughters looked at me. She's like, Dad, you're fat. And she said that because, growing up in the military with me as a Marine, it was always be like, you guys don't need a washing machine. You can come wash your clothes on these apps. Right. And then I came back 18 months later with a belly, and, I ordered Insanity, and my wife and I did that for like 6 months straight to get back in shape. But that's been a lesson, right? It's the holistic side that we're always building. So what we teach those entrepreneurs, I have a methodology I teach them called the 5 F's of life: faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun. You get your spiritual alignment right. You get your family right. You get your finances right. You have fun and you keep working out, you're going to keep that brain working, because the brain works better with optimal food and the nutrition that goes with that when you work out, right? So it's why the military does that first thing in the morning. Go work out, then start your day. So we teach them how to be that optimal person, and then set the goal, set the thing, move out of the first area from survival. So move out from surviving to thriving, and it goes through a process, which is what I love. Systematic approach to whatever it is you want.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I made a lot of mistakes with my first business, and I still make, my fair share of them. But I look back, and one of the things that I wish I did differently was look longer term and focus more on purpose and mission early on. And I think it's really common for people to say, Allan, look, I don't have time to focus on purpose and mission. I'm trying to keep the lights on, right? I don't have any customers. And I think what happens is, and I want you to share your thoughts about this. I think if you focus on purpose and mission and doing something besides just making money, that the money will come, right? Yeah. No matter what. But if you put that the other way around, if you're like, no, let me make money first, and once I make money, then I'm going to give it away. Then I'm going to, create all these great missions, and I'm going to have a higher purpose. And it doesn't always work that way. That the money will always come if you have your legacy in mind, if you have your purpose in mind early, but the opposite isn't true. And sometimes it works that way. Sometimes people make money. They're like, okay, now I can give, but it's not, I don't think it's guaranteed. I think it's, on to bigger and better. Have you found that to be your experience?
Yeah. And it's actually one of the most powerful pieces when you think about what drives the entrepreneur. You consider that the engine. So a couple of things here that you mentioned, I was just like, man, this is like, so we're going deep, right? But we're either pushed by pain or pulled by pleasure, right? Or a vision. So the desire to do anything, and desire, I mean, if you read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, so desires is the first ingredient, right? Desire is what keeps you up late at night and what wakes you up early in the morning. If you, when you wake up in the morning, if you don't have something that's going to drive you when it gets hard, right? So that purpose and meaning that a business owner, an entrepreneur might not want to focus in on, because they might say, that's all the woo-woo stuff. I have time for that later. But what they're not understanding is when it gets hard, you need something to hold on to. And that first comes from that reason, right? That purpose. That for me, in the beginning, it was always to eat. Like I needed money right then. I didn't worry about all this stuff. But the truth, here's the thing. Coming back to it, what really kept me going was, remember, I was homeless. And I still had 2 daughters with my ex-wife, right? Growing, it was to be able to provide for them. And there was I went down a very dark street of suicide ideation, depression, all this other stuff that plagues entrepreneurs, because this is not a game. Most people want to become entrepreneurs, but there's no way you could find out if you'll be it when it comes where your sole income is coming from just being a business owner. And that's when the pressure's on, what is going to prevent you from quitting and going and settle for a job? Now, nothing is wrong with a job. It's a great place to start. That's just not what we were designed to finish. We were designed to finish with our own individual gifts to create and bring something to this world, right? And I always say the 2 very most important days in your life is, one, the day you were born, then the day you find out why. But the next best one is the day you decide to do something about it and keep doing something about it, so that you can make a difference, right? So that purpose is extremely important. If it's not gonna, like, I'm up late because I'm not working for the money. I'm up late because it's driving me that I gotta get this done. And because it's gonna make a change. And I'm up early in the morning because I couldn't wait to get up to go do this again. So that I can keep going. And then the money doesn't matter. Like, I stopped working for money probably 10 years ago, when I realized the mission. And that's when I was really in purpose and meaning, when I finally wrote the book. I didn't figure it out yet, but I knew there was something. It's where all that got created. So I generated a whole lot of money to be able to spend time with my wife. And I thought that was it. It's just to have that freedom. But then I got to that point where it was just like, really, why am I here? Like, what's really going to get me up? Because I don't need money anymore. I'm good. Have a lot of residual deals, did a lot of investment. Like, I literally can sit here for the next 127 years financially, and I'm good. That desire to leave something was what got me up every single day, every single day, every single day. And it was past the money, but it takes an entrepreneur, it takes some time to understand that, especially when they are in the immediate needs, right? When they're just at the bottom of that pyramid going, wait a minute, I gotta eat, I gotta pay rent, I gotta pay the car.
No, 100%. And I can hear the mumblings of my listeners saying, well, yeah, that's easy for you to say, Allan, right? and it is. And I think it, I talk about it just so that it gives some perspective, that when you make money, it's what's next, right? And then what's next? But the legacy, whatever that is, whatever that means to you, that's the end all be all. That's where it ends. That's where, like, you see guys, you brought up Bill Gates, you see people that can do whatever they want. And what are they doing? They're trying to give back. They're working on their foundations, right? That's the end all be all. Well, this has been fantastic, Dr. Bowen. Where can people reach out to you to learn more about Underdog Millionaire and everything that you guys are accomplishing?
One of the best ways, social media. I'm starting to focus a lot more on Instagram now, so they can find me at Dr. Obom Bowen on Instagram, or they can go to theobmastermind.com. And that tells all about what we're doing with Underdog Millionaire. The obmastermind.com, that site has to do a lot with, we do a 2-day master education process to kind of, it's like an intake, helping entrepreneurs understand the key pillars to building a business. First, the mindset and the skill set. And that's a 2-day training we do that they find there to kind of take them through that process. If you're not mentally prepared for business, you're not going to succeed in it. One of the greatest lessons I learned was why so many people actually failed in like sports or school or business. It's like you set a goal to open a business, but you never really set a goal to build a profitable business.
Right.
They set the goal to go to college, but you never set the goal to study and have good grades, right?
Right.
So it's like when you get there, like, yeah, I accomplished the goal. Like, what do I do now? And so part of the process we teach them is how to build and sustain growth. And that comes in like really the different pillars of momentum, how to get to momentum, advance momentum, accelerate it, and, keep going.
Love it. Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure, Dr. Bowen. Love learning from you and wish you nothing but luck and success in the future.
Allan, thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity. And if there's anything we can do to remain in touch and help and serve your audience, I'd be happy to do it.
If you've enjoyed today's podcast, please leave us a rating. And for daily inspiration and business tips, follow Allan on Instagram. Until next time, remember, we build the future one entrepreneur at a time.